cold February night in 2024, in the quiet suburbs of Hendersonville, Tennessee, a 15-year-old boy stepped out of his bedroom and into the void. He walked past the front door. He walked past the security cameras. He didn't take his shoes. He didn't take his jacket. And, perhaps most terrifying of all for a boy glued to the digital world, he didn't take his phone. He simply ceased to exist. This is not just a story about a missing child. It is a story about a house with no secrets, a neighborhood with eyes everywhere, and a boy who vanished from the one place he was supposed to be safest. Where is Sebastian Rogers? To understand the tragedy of February 26th, we first have to understand the boy at the center of the storm. Sebastian Rogers was 15 years old, but those who knew him best say his spirit was younger, gentler. Diagnosed with high-functioning autism, Sebastian viewed the world through a distinct lens. He was a creature of habit. He was a boy of specific, intense joys. He wasn't the type of teenager to sneak out to parties or meet friends in the woods. By all accounts, Sebastian was a homebody. His world was curated and safe. He loved video games. He loved the structure of his routine. And above all else, he loved his smartphone. It was his tether to the world, his entertainment, his comfort object. Friends and family described him as incredibly sweet, non-confrontational, and deeply intelligent in his own way. But with that intelligence came vulnerability. Sebastian had sensory processing challenges. He didn't like the feeling of grass on his bare feet. He was wary of the dark. He wasn't street smart in the way a typical 15-year-old might be. He lived in Hendersonville, Tennessee, a place that feels safe. It's a community of manicured lawns, winding driveways, and dense pockets of woodland that separate the subdivisions. It's the kind of place where people move to raise families away from the chaos of the city. Sebastian lived with his mother, Katie Proudfoot, and his stepfather, Chris Proudfoot. His biological father, Seth Rogers, remained a constant figure in his life. Despite the separation, it was a complex family dynamic, like many are, but Sebastian was the sun they all orbited. Until that Sunday night. The timeline of a disappearance is always reconstructed in retrospect. We look for clues in the mundane, trying to find the moment the clock stopped ticking. Sunday, February 25th, 2024, began as a standard day, but there was tension in the air. According to later interviews given by his mother, Katie, Sebastian had been struggling slightly over the weekend. There were reports of him acting out of character, perhaps a bit more agitated than usual. That evening, the family went out for dinner. They went to a Japanese steakhouse. It was a normal family outage. CCTV footage from the restaurant, which would later be scrutinized by thousands of amateur detectives online, shows Sebastian standing in the lobby. He looks normal. He is wearing his black sweatshirt, his glasses perched on his face. He is there, physically present, alive. They returned home to their house on Stafford Court. Stafford Court is crucial to this story. It is not a house in the middle of nowhere. It is in a subdivision. Neighbors are close. The construction is dense. To leave this area unseen is difficult. According to his mother, the evening wound down with typical domestic chores. Sebastian was asked to take out the trash. He did so. He came back inside. Then came the bedtime routine. At around 9 p.m., Katie told Sebastian it was time for bed. "I love you," she told him. "I love you too," he replied. He went into his room. He had his phone with him, his lifeline. But, and this is a detail that haunts the case, his mother allegedly asked him to leave the phone in the kitchen or a common area to ensure he slept. Or, according to other accounts, he went to his room without it. The specific handling of the phone that night is a point of contention, but the result is the same. The phone was not in his hand when he vanished. At roughly 10 p.m. or shortly thereafter, his mother says she heard a noise from his room. "A thump? A rustle?" she called out to him. "Keep it down," she might have said, or "Go to sleep." He responded. He was there. The house went quiet. The lights went out. The parents went to sleep, believing their son was safe behind the closed door of his bedroom. Outside, the Tennessee night was cold. The temperature dropped. The wind rustled through the dense woods behind the subdivision. And sometime between that good night and the rising sun, the front door opened. Monday, February 26, 6 a.m. The alarm goes off. It's a school day. The routine is supposed to restart. Katie Proudfoot walks to Sebastian's door. She knocks. No answer. This isn't necessarily strange. Teenagers are heavy sleepers. She opens the door, expecting to see a lump under the duvet. The bed is empty. But it's not just empty. It's undisturbed. Or maybe it's messy? The details blur in the panic. She checks the bathroom. Empty. The living room. Empty. The kitchen. Empty. She calls out his name. Sebastian? Silence. Panic begins to set in. A cold grip on the chest. She checks the doors. The front door is locked. The back door is locked. But wait. Was the garage door compromised? Was a window open? She checks for his shoes. His favorite pairs are right there by the door where he left them. She checks for his jacket. It's hanging up. She checks for his phone. It's on the charger or the counter. Sebastian, the boy who hated the feeling of grass on his feet, the boy who needed his phone like he needed air, had apparently left the house barefoot, coatless, and disconnected. At 6:23 a.m., the call is made to Sumner County Emergency Services. My son is missing. Those 4 words initiate a protocol that changes a town forever. Within minutes, police cruisers are rolling into Stafford Court. Blue lights bounce off the quiet suburban houses. Neighbors peek through blinds, coffee mugs in hand, wondering what is happening at the Proudfoot residence. The police enter the home. They clear the rooms. Closets are opened. Under beds. Behind shower curtains. The attic. The garage. Nothing. The radius expands. They check the backyard. They check the neighbor's yard. They check the drainage ditches. By 9 a.m., the realization settles in. Sebastian Rogers didn't just hide. He is gone. In missing persons cases, the first 24 to 48 hours are known as the critical window. Statistics tell us that if a child is found, they are usually found in this time frame. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office mobilized immediately, and they didn't do it alone. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, TBI, was called in. The terrain around Hendersonville is deceptive. From the street, it looks like simple suburbia. But step 10 feet into the tree line, and it becomes a tangled mess of underbrush, steep ravines, and waterways. The Cumberland River is nearby. Old Hickory Lake is a massive body of water that borders the area. For a neurotypical adult, this terrain is difficult. For a 15-year-old with autism, who may have sensory issues and poor motor coordination in the dark, it is a death trap. Search teams arrived in droves. We are talking about bloodhounds. Drones with thermal imaging, helicopters chopping the air above the neighborhood. The dogs were given Sebastian's scent. They circled the house. They sniffed the driveway. And here's where the mystery deepens. Usually, tracking dogs will catch a scent trail. They will pull their handlers toward the woods or down the street. But in the case of Sebastian Rogers, reports suggest the dogs were confused. The scent didn't lead deep into the woods. It didn't lead miles down the road. It seemed to evaporate. This lack of a scent trail birthed the first major theory. Did he get into a car? If a child walks away, the scent continues. If a child gets into a vehicle, either willingly or by force, the scent trail ends abruptly at the pavement. Day turned to night. The temperature dropped again. Volunteers wanted to help, but authorities asked them to stay back initially, fearing they would trample evidence. Tuesday came. No Sebastian. Wednesday came. No Sebastian. The golden hour had passed. Chapter 5. The Lights in the Darkness. As the physical search yielded nothing, no shreds of clothing, no footprints in the mud, the investigation turned digital. Investigators pulled security footage from every home in the neighborhood. They were looking for a figure walking in the dark. And then a neighbor's camera caught something. It wasn't a clear video of Sebastian walking. It wasn't a smoking gun. It was two distinct light sources. In the grainy, black and white footage from the early hours of the morning, two lights appear in the darkness near the Rogers home. They look like flashlights. The internet sleuths exploded. Who was holding the flashlights? Was it Sebastian? Was it someone leading him away? Was it just a reflection? The family was questioned. The timeline was scrutinized. If Sebastian left on his own, why did he need a light? He didn't take his phone, which has a flashlight. Did he have a flashlight in his room? If it wasn't Sebastian who was walking around Stafford Court at 3 a.m., the police analyzed the video. They stated, cautiously, that some of the lights could be debris or bugs reflecting infrared light, or perhaps garbage trucks. But the community wasn't convinced. To them, those flickering lights were the ghosts of the crime. No modern disappearance happens in a vacuum. It happens on TikTok. It happens on YouTube. It happens on Facebook. As the days turned into weeks, the public gaze turned toward the parents, Katie and Chris Proudfoot, and Sebastian's biological father, Seth Rogers. Seth Rogers quickly became the face of the desperate search. He was on the ground every day. He was organizing volunteer searches when the police scaled back. He spoke to every camera that was shoved in his face. His demeanor was one of exhausted, frantic heartbreak. He openly criticized the speed of the investigation. He hired a private investigator. He became the hero figure in the narrative of the public. Katie and Chris Proudfoot, however, faced a different court, the court of public opinion. Early in the investigation, they gave interviews that some viewers labeled as unemotional or strange. Chris Proudfoot, in particular, came under fire. He had been out of town for work on the night Sebastian disappeared, a fact verified by police. He was in Memphis, but his comments in interviews where he seemed to speak about Sebastian in the past tense or appeared defensive ignited a firestorm of suspicion. Why aren't they searching the woods? People asked. Katie explained they were told by law enforcement to stay at the house in case Sebastian returned or called. But the internet didn't buy it. Theories ran wild. Was it a cover-up? Did something happen inside the house that Sunday night? Was the trip to the restaurant a staged event to establish an alibi? It is important to state clearly, law enforcement has named no suspects. The parents have cooperated. They have passed polygraphs, according to their own statements, though police rarely confirm this. But the friction between Seth Rogers, the bio dad, and the Proudfoots, mom and stepdad, became public theater. Seth publicly questioned the story of the barefoot walk. "My son would not walk on grass without shoes," Seth insisted. "He wouldn't leave his gaming console. He wouldn't leave his phone." This discrepancy is the heart of the mystery. The behavior described, running away barefoot in the cold, did not match the profile of the child everyone knew. When the police searches began to scale down, implying that the area had been cleared, a new group entered the chat, the United Cajun Navy. This is a volunteer disaster relief organization known for swooping in during hurricanes and floods. They arrived in Tennessee with boats, swamp buggies, and manpower, but their involvement quickly turned chaotic. They searched the waterways that the police had already scanned. They went under bridges. They hacked through the thorny brush. However, internal drama plagued the volunteer efforts. There were reports of death threats. There were arguments between the Cajun Navy leadership and local volunteers. The atmosphere in Hendersonville turned toxic. People were accusing each other of sabotage. Searchers were claiming they were being followed. The focus shifted from finding Sebastian to fighting over who is finding Sebastian. Eventually, the Cajun Navy pulled out, citing safety concerns for their team due to the volatility of the community reaction. It was a low point in the saga. A boy was still missing, but the adults were fighting a war of egos and conspiracies. Then, a grim development. In many cases where a body is not found in the immediate vicinity, investigators must consider the unthinkable, that the person was concealed in a trash receptacle. The authorities obtained a search warrant for the local landfill. For days, investigators in hazmat suits raked through tons of compacted garbage. They were looking for a needle in a haystack, evidence of a boy's body or his belongings. The imagery was heartbreaking. The idea that a child who loved Minecraft and gentle things could end up in such a place was too much for the community to bear. They found nothing. Or at least nothing they released to the public. The landfill search ended. The police stated they had followed the evidence, but the evidence had led to a dead end. So, where are we now? What could have possibly happened? There are three prevailing theories, each with its own terrifying logic. Theory 1, the wander-off scenario. This is the official working theory of the initial investigation. Sebastian, perhaps triggered by stress or a manic episode, left the house. Disoriented, he walked into the woods. The flaw: the search was massive. Thermal drones would have picked up his body heat in the cold woods. Dogs would have found a scent. And he had no shoes. How far could he get? Sebastian left the house and was met by someone. A predator online? A stranger in a car? The support? This explains the lack of scent trail. He got into a car. It explains why he hasn't been found in the woods. The flaw: Sebastian was shy. He didn't use social media in a way that usually attracts predators, according to parents. And there is no digital footprint of him arranging a meetup. Theory 3, foul play close to home. This is the theory that dominates the internet. The idea that Sebastian never left the house alive or was removed from the house by someone he knew. The support? The staged feel of the scene? Shoes left behind? The lack of evidence outside? The flaw? There is no physical evidence. No blood. No witness. And the stepfather has a verified alibi of being out of town. As of today, Sebastian Rogers remains missing. The yellow ribbons tied around the trees in Hendersonville are fading, bleached by the sun and battered by the rain. The posters are peeling. The news cycle has moved on to other tragedies. But for Seth Rogers, the clock is still stuck at 6 a.m. on February 26th. For the community, every rustle in the woods is a question mark. Sebastian Rogers walked into the dark without his shoes. He walked into a mystery that has baffled the FBI, the TBI, and the world. Is he still out there, hiding in plain sight? Or did the silence of that February night swallow him whole? Until he is found, the front porch light in Hendersonville stays on, burning a hole in the darkness, waiting for a boy who might never come home.